Bem-vindos, bem-vindos a mais um Hospitality Talks. Olha só, no episódio de hoje eu tenho um amigo aqui e uma pessoa que eu admiro demais. Para você que é empreendedor e às vezes tá achando difícil de repente sair um pouco da operação, meu convidado de hoje ele não tem um restaurante não, ele tem 5 restaurantes e todos eles ao redor do mundo. Catar, Dubai, Londres e ainda esse ano saiu um na Maldivas. Welcome to the show, welcome to Hospitality Talks, Chef Jolly Goods.
Thank you so much. Really pleased to be here. Thank you, Chef.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And Chef, the first question I would like to ask you is, what's hospitality to you?
Well, I think it's a brilliant question to start with, and I keep telling this to myself, and I experience it every day in my restaurants, and I tell my team as well that there are wonderful places which sell great food, great beverage, great ambiance, but what makes the difference is the emotional connect, the positive emotional connect that we can make with the guest, and that is real hospitality. Whether it is listening to somebody, whether it is making it a memorable experience through different gestures or surprising somebody with a small little, knick-knack or a beverage, or taking back some of the guests through their earlier memories by creating a dish close to their liking. And I think this, in many words, is hospitality because the customer then connects with you more than just a restaurant. And this is a beautiful chemistry if we are able to naturally adapt in our own character. It's like, you're a friend of mine and I invite you home. I don't treat you as a guest, I treat you as a family member. So there is no written law of if I have to serve you from left or right, or if I have to, make you feel hospitable by just taking care of good food to be served. It's a chemistry, the bonding which we have. It's a warmth which we share through our natural emotions and gestures. So I think broadly speaking, it is the emotional connect positively, which we exchange between two people in the most genuine fashion. That's hospitality for me.
That's a beautiful explanation, I have to say. I mean, it's easy to see your passion for food and for cooking, but you also kind of very experienced on the front of the house as well, isn't it?
I believe so.
Tell me a little bit of this history of back then you almost became a general manager then you kind of came back to the kitchen, isn't it?
Yeah. I believe as a chef, there were days earlier when a chef was behind the wall and he would cook in the heat, sweat, and hard work, long hours. But it's important for any chef today or a professional to understand the bigger picture of the business. And, you may cook great food, but if the great food is not served in the same passion, or the same sort of, energy, if you like, then it defeats the whole purpose. So I believe that I had always the incline to understand, does the food that we've cooked, or I've cooked, or my team has cooked, does it bring smiles on your face as a guest? And I keep telling people that you should be so confident as a chef that you don't need to go and ask a guest how was the food. You just look at the first impressions of a guest when he eats. And I have my goosebumps when I talk to you that, the expression of a chef might have that say, oh, he has a smile, or he nods his head. That tells me. Which is why I believe that I always wanted to go in the front, interact, tell my stories to them, hear from the guest, what exactly do they want, if we are able to tailor make it to their needs. And which is why that want to connect and make a better impression took me outside the peripheral of the kitchen. And I started, training myself and learning from the other experts as to what do they do. So I'm not more into the scientific aspect of how do you raise a check, how do you input into the micros. For me, getting an experience in front of the house is more to ensure if the greeting of a guest, if the meeting of a guest, if the seating of a guest, if intermediate between the meals right from welcoming to farewell. How did it all go? And did we do enough to ensure that was the farewell as good as the welcome? You know, and are all the touch points, whether you take the order, you seat somebody, if a recommendation was made to a guest, was it to, you know, his liking? Anything, could the seating be well, could the music, the sound, just the comfort, and then making a long lasting impression before the guest leaves. So all this drove me to get into the front of the house, and I think it became very natural with me that I learned the ropes of being a food and beverage director. This was way back in 2015, 16 at the JW Marriott in
15, 16,
India.
okay.
And then my team, the senior, the food and beverage, and the you know, the human resource department and the vice president of the region saw that I could deliver. And then I further went on training of being an ops director. I learned the tricks of, not the tricks, but the science of revenue management, public relations, interacting, training in all those avenues which are required to be a general manager. And finally, in 2017, I was offered a GM of a new hotel opening in Bangalore.
Okay.
But as you rightly say, there was a little twist. Not very many people were happy with me at that time because I had my love for the whites. And as you can understand, I said, you know, wearing this tie and the suit and being very stiff and having the meetings on the table was, I liked more than that. I wanted to be in the space which I could call it creative, and I could paint my own picture. And I didn't want to lose that. And I thought being a GM of a hotel was great. You know, you financially, you're much well off. You've got stock options in the company. You could possibly do a Monday to a Friday, take the weekends off, play golf on the weekend if you like, etc., etc. Not very many fortunate chefs to do that.
No, really. But the height was not there.
Yeah, so my heart and love was always in the kitchen. And I look back, I was just sharing, I look back, it's about 8 years now, ever since that opportunity. And I'm loving every day. I have absolutely no regrets, and I love my choices, what I've made. Yes, so great question there.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I think that was just a training, like kind of a training to the point where you now are able to open restaurants around the world. And so how many restaurants you have now, chef?
So I run and operate close to about 5. And hopefully grow to a few more this year and early next year, which are on the cards. But I enjoy operating business in Singapore. I've got a fine dining concept in Singapore called Shikar. The other one is more street food, you know, cheap, cheerful, casual space called Gup Shop, which literally means chit chat in the Hindi dialect. Shikar means hunt. So I've got a lot of grills and game meats on the menu. One is at Doha at the St. Regis Hotel. It's called Rivaj. Rivaj translates in Hindi to mean cultural and traditions. It's an opulent restaurant, and I think in the St. Regis luxury collection, it sort of fits very well. Opened one recently with my mates here called The Great Indian.
In London?
In London, and close in Finsbury Park, closest tube is Archway. It's a take on an old gastropub which we've converted. It's a 1898 old pub, and we've converted it into a beautiful setting, very comfort, inspiration from pan-India, more social dining concept. So that's started this is the 9th week now, which is doing great. Yeah, opened a restaurant in a cruise liner, Queen Anne, called Aranya. And it's a beautiful ship, luxurious, doing cross Atlantic and the world tour now. That's beautiful. That's based on the forage and the herbs and spices in abundance in India. So that's a different concept altogether. And I do a few knickknacks.
I have to ask you something, you know, like, I mean, running a team, right, on hospitality, it's a challenge. We all know. If you have to give some advice on how to run all these operations around the world,
yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it?
That's a very tricky one.
That's a tricky one, which keeps me on my toes all the time. I have to tell you that. Yeah. First thing first, I believe to have smooth running place, there are few important elements that I'd like to sort of believe that they are. One is that your key stakeholders, like your investors or the main people who have invested in the restaurant or project, we need to be on the same wavelength. Yeah, pretty much open to exchange of ideas, sometimes differ and agree on ideas. So they need to be on a similar platform. The second stakeholder is your team. Your team has to be in sync with you, and I believe so excited and charged up and wanting to grow and hungry to sort of improve and go. I believe. And the third thing is communication is very, very key. How do you communicate with them on day-to-day basis? And what vision do they have? And how are they responding to the information being shared, right? Fourthly, what concept you've put in place, if it is befitting in the invested project, if the team is trained to deliver that, and do we feel belonged to that whole concept? Because it shouldn't just become a transactional business. It should be a place where you want to, you feel the whole place. But long story short, I have a strategy, a process in place, because with a proper strategy, you can't deliver it. So I've got my core team of chefs and the front of the house general manager in all the locations, whether it's Singapore, the 2 restaurants, or it's Qatar, Doha, or here. And we communicate based on few things regularly. One could be, how is your business performing now, based on whether it's a revenue, average check, etc. But most importantly, what are the guests' inputs? What is the Google reviews telling us? We are proudly sitting at 4.7 in most of our restaurants, which
4.7,
which is great. And we get to hear those finer details of inputs that the guests are saying. Also, I have a regular meeting with my team, my associates, in my restaurant, whom I hear from as an internal guest. My associates are internal associates who give me their touch points with the guests. We have debriefing every evening, and the chef and the restaurant manager discuss what was shared by the guest, what was their opinion, what worked well, what didn't work well. And we love to look at it every weekly basis as to how we can improve that space. Then we've got something called a food and beverage planner. I look at my plans 1 quarter ahead in time.
One quarter ahead in time.
For example, I know, International Women's Day is coming on the 8th of March, for example. This year, we have an Indian festival called Holy, which is on 14th. I also know Easter is on the 20th of April. Father's Day is coming in later. Mother's Day is happening, on the 30th of March. So we need to associate ourselves from the restaurant point of view and with the guests and see how we can create special events for them. How are we able to engage with them on a daily basis? So basically, it's not very complicated if we strategize, based on how are numbers doing and things around the numbers, how are guests, because if there are no guests, no customers, no paycheck, no business, no associates required. So that's, again, a key thing. And then my development of my team is very critical, the third thing. So is my team growing? Am I being able to get my second, sous chef ready to take over the number 1 position? Can my number 1 guy look after 2 or 3 projects? Can my team leader become an assistant restaurant manager? What skill does he or she need? What am I doing to help develop their own skills? I'll give you a quick example here. I had a team. I had a chef de partie, as a section chef in my Qatar property who did very well. I took him to my Singapore property, and now he is a senior sous chef.
Okay.
Right. And then I had a senior sous chef now who is the head chef of one of the properties. And then I had a guy who's looking after my section in tandoor and grills from Singapore. He's now come with me in London. I had chefs with me who worked 20 years ago. They are in my team now. So I love to grow the team. Because you're nothing without a team.
No.
You are what your team is like. We are one of the links. So I believe strategizing, planning, regular communication, trying to analyze how the business is performing, improving from the inputs what we get, and having a vision. What are we going to do in future? Are we in sync with the trends and the concept? We can't, if you're not in trends, if you're not catching up with it, if you're not focusing on, let's say, vegan options or gluten-free options, for example, or more vegetarian options as the trend is changing, we will be left back at the race, right? So we want to keep that. We want to be in sync with the current changes in the demographic or the customers. Customers don't like too heavy food. Maybe then what are we doing differently? I have breads in my restaurant, which is gluten-free. And, because breads is generally your wheat flour, or, different flours. So we have special breads now, gluten-free in India, in Indian restaurants. In here, in all my restaurants. I do a lot of vegan options now. Trends are changing. Yeah, and similarly.
Trends are changing fast.
Trends are changing fast, and we got to keep up with it. Absolutely.
And how do you see the trends? Like, of course, you have restaurants around the world, and how do you see the trends, like difference between, like, let's say, London and Doha, for example? You see a difference there, or especially on the vegan? I think London is really.
Oh yes. London, Singapore are very sort of trending towards vegan concepts. Whereas your first question, comparative to Doha and London, I believe Doha is emerging.
Okay.
Doha is excited in terms of the culinary space. They are doing a lot. And the government is also encouraging a lot of tourists to come in. Qatar tourism is really opening up, especially after FIFA. They, first time ever, they had the Michelin inspectors come last year.
Oh, really? Last year?
Last year was the first time. We have Rivaj as our restaurant got selected as a Michelin Select for the first year. So we're very proud of that. Thank you. So you've got people like Nobu, renowned chefs like Nobu. You had, different chefs come in Doha now. You have very good brands of London now in Doha. But the eating out culture in Doha is, I would say, at its infancy. It's early days now, but I certainly see a great potential. They do the annual food shows, and they had about 36 odd Michelin chefs come in and do a huge food show every year now in Qatar. So whilst London is very developed already with different concepts, and people are there to admire and appreciate, various kinds of food, I believe Doha is not too far. It will get there, but slightly early days for it. But there is so much of international brands already existing in Doha, in the hotels.
And Singapore is some years ahead.
Singapore is way ahead in terms
I love Singapore.
Yeah, and then, one thing I see in Singapore is a Korean barbecue concept is raging.
Really?
Yeah, massive. And the young generation are now strangely eating out late, unlike we had thought. I find queues in restaurants at 10 o'clock in the night.
Okay.
Yeah, which is strange. But you've got fantastic, skill set in Singapore. And the beauty about Singapore is a small island. And if I were to think of Singapore, it's a beautiful country. It's a very clean country. But most importantly, the island it's a small island. And a country is a lot governed by the demographic and the people it has. So Singapore is a lot about banking. It's a lot about shipping. It's a lot about trade. And the percentage of that kind of people who have a great spend, more corporate banking, is a lot more than what I would think, for example, in Doha.
Right.
Yeah. Or what I would think in whole of UK, because Singapore is very concentrated. And the concept of Singaporeans is eating out. I believe 9 out of 10 people in Singapore, and don't hold me for the stats, but I certainly believe majority would eat out. And there's great food in the food courts. You don't need to cook food at home because
food courts are great.
Food is fresh and food is very reasonable. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of variety of food of different cuisines. You got Malay, you got Sri Lankan, you got Indian, you name it. So you don't get bored if you were to live there. for years. Trust me, you don't need to cook at home at all. You just start with a coffee at home, maybe that's it.
That's
And I
it,
mean
is
it, and I mean it. Because of that, the culture of eating out has helped the industry a lot as well.
a lot as well.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And on your plans, it's coming Maldives as well.
Yes, we're looking at doing a pop-up in Maldives at the St. Regis towards October, November this year. And I always love pop-ups. So
Yeah.
we're going to do this for about 5 to 7 weeks. So it's a long pop-up. Unlike something which I do in other places, just come back from Ritz-Carlton in Baku in Azerbaijan and did that for a 2-day event. But the St. Regis is longer. And I can actually connect this with my St. Regis property in Doha because we did a pop-up in 2019 for about 2 months. And we felt that the people in Qatar loved our food and the ownership loved our food as well. So we believe that there is an opportunity to then perhaps have a permanent restaurant, which is a great way to sense the market, to check the feedback of the guests as well. So I don't know what holds in stake for us in St. Regis at the Maldives property, but the intention is to do a test run.
Test run. So the idea is always when you're going to a new country, a new place, you do the pop-up. For how long normally? Two to 3 months?
I generally, minimum is about a month, but here they are keen to do it for 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah, at the lovely property overlooking the ocean. Obviously, the different sets of challenges there because, an island country and there's so many islands in Maldives. So you're catering primarily to the in-house guests of the hotel.
Right.
And people generally stay there from 3 to 5 days. So you're churning out so many hundred people every week.
Okay.
New people come in, new people go. Unlike in the UK, which is a proper land where people will drive in to come in Maldives, this particular project is in-house guests. But we treat every resident to come and eat at the restaurant at least once or twice in their stay, right? So it's a different demographic set. But it's interesting because if those guests who are coming in, be it Americans, be it from Asia, be it from Europe, a lot of Europeans going now to Maldives, a lot of Indian subcontinent go to Maldives. When you're in a hotel in that vicinity, you want every day to be exciting.
Yeah.
And I believe the flavors of Indian subcontinent and India will bring plenty for them to at least feel a little, inquisitive and excited. Oh, let's go and try some Indian grills or a curry or a biryani or, whatever it may be on the menu. So, yeah, I'm excited for this.
Yeah. That's interesting. And the approach, you approach like the hotel in this case. So,
yes.
So the pop-up is inside a hotel.
It's at the St. Regis Luxury Collection in Maldives in a hotel. And they were kind enough to give me a lovely space which overlooks the ocean. And there is a little prep kitchen in the hotel and a finishing kitchen close to the restaurant.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing, prepping there, finishing the sort of a little more than a pantry kitchen, if you like, which has the knickknacks, and then dishing out the food from there every evening.
That's exciting. Looks, it'll be a great project, I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
Chef, of course, one of the questions that I would love to know a little bit more about it's you've been a judge on the MasterChef as well.
Yes.
In India. If you can just share with our audience how was this journey of
Oh, good. Yeah.
of the MasterChef and the TV shows. Let's go through.
Yeah. So, I have to. So I did TV for 2 years before I went into MasterChef.
Okay.
And the 2 years TV was more about a studio, setup as one concept where I had to sort of, prepare the food and showcase alongside some of the invited guests who would come and showcase their expertise. The other format was going into people's houses where the whole camera crew would go and they would say, okay, this is this is the cupboard we have, this is the kitchen cabinet, this is a fridge, this is what, can you whip up a dish? So I had to think, and very honestly, you know how TV works, there's a cheat process. And sometimes they say, oh, chef, we're going to have these things in it, so don't be surprised. And I would tell them, listen, I want to be surprised. Leave it to my originality. I want to be genuine. Don't tell me what you have. Let me pick up something on the spur of the moment. And then after this exciting 2 years on the Z TV in India, I went on to do the judge of the MasterChef. I did that for 2 stints. One was as a special guest judge, on the MasterChef, first and the second, first one, I believe. And the other one was a junior MasterChef, which was a whole season. I believe being a judge on the TV is very different to a regular chef in the kitchen, right? And the key differences lies is, when you're a judge and you're on the screen and then the camera is facing you, you literally start analyzing yourself as to every word you say needs to be having a certain meaning, a purpose. And if we are communicating this with a candidate or a participant judging, it brings meaningful listening or meaningful message that you pass on to your participants. It's very much close to like as a chef when you're mentoring or training a young chef and you want to give that chef a good input or a feedback, and mostly it has to be encouraging. Not always, kind of rebuking somebody or being, putting somebody down as well. So the whole thought process on the TV changes where you start self-introspecting yourself as a judge and say, okay, what am I bringing to the table? What am I here for? And what will that participant or the audience gain from me speaking or expressing anything? So it becomes like self-examination, really. So that was quite interesting. And the 3 months or 4 months of the Junior MasterChef India was like living in a hotel, starting at 7 in the morning, finishing at 12. Shoots were going on, it's a different world altogether. And it can be quite trying, but it's very enjoyable. And long days of shooting and working with people, understanding each other's chemistry, being encouraging. I think it was, the TV was,
I think
very different.
Encouraging is the word, like as a chef, we need to pass that to the new generation, to the new chefs starting, isn't it? We need to keeping the industry growing.
Of course, educating them, what our learnings were in a different way, and then how they can look at things differently, which we didn't have growing up as chefs. And now with the technology and the exposure being so much, even the participants are very knowledgeable. So, and they have their own individual ideas.
Okay.
And then letting them use their own individual ideas, but few things that you can steer them so they get the best out of themselves. So it's quite interesting. I had a lot of self-learning myself while I was on the TV.
Did you get any chef on your team from the MasterChef? Or?
Oh, I had. So that's a good one. Now I remember. I had one of the chefs who became the winner, and we offered him 1 year apprenticeship in my kitchen. To come and experience and how we could help him spruce up and help his platform, of a career go stronger. So we did that as well in Mumbai, in Bombay.
In Mumbai. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting.
That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah. And how are you seeing the Indian food? Of course, in India you have Goa.
Yeah.
That's a Portuguese.
Yes, absolutely. The Portuguese rule for about 500 years.
Yeah, and I know that your heart's in Goa as well. I would like to go through.
So Goa is, the word Goa itself brings positivity and happiness and lots of good things going about Goa, because firstly it's a beachside state, and its the capital city is also very close to the beach side. Food has a lot of Portuguese influence because it was a Portuguese colony. And unlike the British colony, which is India, which was only about 250 odd years, the Portuguese ruled for about 500 years. Okay. So that's way longer. And they brought in all the lovely flavors and different sort of cuisine influences, which Goa till date sort of prides in making it very unique amongst the Indian regional food. But, it's sunny, it's beach, and it brings about a fun. The people love music in Goa. More Catholic, sort of, you would find a lot of Catholic presence there. Beautiful churches in Goa because of obviously of the Portuguese influence. And I love it because it's a big package of goodness. Mm-hmm. Eating, drinking, music, people like fun. The general mentality there is very open. And today you have one of the best restaurants in Goa now coming in, and people are investing because it's not a serious place, but it's a serious place for fun and relaxation. So it packages very well. And I remember many years ago, I was the executive chef of Marriott in Goa, which was the first hotel of Marriott in the country, by the beach in Miramar. And after work, all the chefs and the team would go and have a party. Can you believe it? 12 in the night, and have a party till about 2, 3 in the morning. Get back to work at 7 to start work. So that was a life. And day in, day out, and you would make great friends. You would have like-minded people. You work hard, you played hard, literally. Okay. If I could say that, in our culinary experience, Goa was a place where you worked hard, you played hard, and you had fantastic guests. People came there for fun and relaxation. I think Goa, and my wife is from Goa as well. She's been a chef specializing in the Goan Portuguese food. Brilliant.
And from Goa and from your wife, did you take a little bit of this Portuguese influence on your restaurants, on your cuisines today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think she's got some of the finest recipes with her, which date back to years and centuries. So I have a great dish, which is a peri-peri based, sauce, if you like, which is used a lot in India, like the bal chow or reshad or peri-peri. And peri-peri was kind of a chili which was brought in by the Portuguese during their exploration into India on the western coast of Goa and down south to Kerala. And they cook a lot of food in there, like bal chow is literally the dried prawns, and they have a paste made with spices. They grind it up with cashew vinegar. Cashew vinegar for better preservative sense. So I've got a dish here where we do small little sliders with pork belly. Yeah. Okay. And it's cooked in that sauce and beautiful tender. Now we're introducing short rib beef on the menu with this spice, and it goes beautifully, how meat just falls off the bone. So we have this flavor coming in. There is a paste or a marinade called kafrial, right, which is made with green herbs and coriander and spices. I've got a tiger prawn here, which is tandoor roasted with the kafrial marinade in the menu as well. So I love doing. So
you love the influence.
Yeah, I love the influence in my own way. We love to bring these beautiful celebratory dishes of Goa Portuguese sort of influence in our menus, and this is what I do, because for me, I showcase Indian cuisine in a very different light. It's very regional. It's not Indian food. It's regional Indian food. And we want to celebrate the regions of India in my own different ways. And so, some of my restaurants.
Do you think there is a chance there for a twist for an Indian-Brazilian concept?
I have to shake hands with you on this.
We had that conversation.
Back in, and I have to tell you that football is the game in Goa. Okay. Right? And whenever there's an international game being played, Goa has to support Brazil or Portugal, and they're fanatics about it as well.
Right.
And that is the fun side of it. Now, I believe now Brazil is it's a fantastic cuisine, and it has got great techniques of preparation as well. And India comes along with great flavors and spices and techniques as well. And I've been wanting to do something. And if I do that, I'm going to come to you
Yeah,
for
sure.
that.
I mean,
And create a concept which hasn't been done before. So whilst we are on the podcast and the radio and everybody's listening, we better get cracking on this before somebody else does it.
it's your idea.
But I always feel that the audience is so global now. You know, you've got yesterday I had somebody from New York sitting and eating at my restaurant with somebody who was a corporate from London. You know, I had people coming in from Malaysia eating in our restaurant as well. So the world has become such a small place that the global audience has been traveling in South America, North America, Asia, Singapore, Dubai, London, and they appreciate and they understand and they're very knowledgeable. Right. And I believe they're always on the lookout for surprises. So whilst I love my classic traditional food, and sometimes when I do classic and traditional, I don't mess around with it. But when I want to make it fun, we want to intelligently use the technique or the style of cooking and use it with a different spice and flavor to create a unique concept, which is why I certainly believe for me, for coming ventures, certainly India, Brazil is on the cards.
There is so much. That's very
Absolutely,
good.
absolutely.
It's very good, Chef. For someone starting on the career, not starting, but someone that maybe really wants to open a restaurant, has a dream to open a restaurant, what would be your advice on? You've been to this journey of finding investors on. You believe in the concept. What would be your main advice for someone that's wish to go on that path?
Right. I think it's a brilliant question. And I see a lot of people, whether they are young students or, you know, normal people who are in different shows or work, want to open restaurants. And when it comes to being a skilled person approaching an investor, there are a few key elements I always believe that one needs to have. Certainly, idea in your mind as to what do you want to do, right? And the idea comes in after you've had experiences, traveling around, meeting people, working in different setups, working in different countries or different regions, where you gather global learning, you know, in your culinary side of things. And with that, it only gives you the additional confidence. And the additional confidence needs to be then built on with your individual conviction to what you believe in. So before you're meeting an investor wants to know why should he or she invest in you, right? So the most important thing is, what do you bring to the table?
What do you bring to the table?
Right. So an investor is always interested in how confident or how convicted you are, the conviction you have in the concept, right? So if a young person or anybody wants to get into it, they need to really understand the food business. Now, food business is not only about cooking a great food. If somebody says, oh, I've got a brilliant idea, I've got a great dish on my mind, let me, you know, open a restaurant, I think that's a half-baked idea. The longevity of a restaurant is how will your concept be sustainable over the years and time, right? And where are you sort of opening the restaurant is critical. Understanding the demographic. You can have an idea of a fine dining restaurant, but imagine if you're sitting next to a beachside, which is casual, and people want to just eat burgers and chips and etc. That idea could be great, but it doesn't fit into that market.
Does it fit to the market?
So there are a lot of things that one needs to understand when he or she is finding an investor. Being on the same wavelength of the investor is very important. An investor invests either for passion, or an investor invests because it's a business, and how that person can scale up the project. And then money is in exiting, when you exit the business, and how much money you can make. So it's important as a chef to understand what is the objective of the investor. So finding the common wavelength. And as a chef today, I believe, or any other industry, relation building is very, very key. How you build a relation. Because at the end of the day, any business works with good relations and good sort of chemistry between the two people. So a chef needs to be like a sponge, absorb as much as possible, learn, and be flexible enough to hear from the other person as to what their vision is, and finding a common part. And very often, if you're a great chef and you have these sort of elements in you, whether you're creative or you're adventurous or you're passionate, and how is your character in terms of relation building, very often an investor comes to you through word of mouth. You could say, oh, by the way, meet this guy, he's talented, he can do something. And then you can talk. But most importantly, as a chef, to have an experience is very important. And then to have your vision is equally important, because at the end of the day, the investor is investing in you as a person.
Yeah.
And then you become the spinal cord, or the key thing for the business to revolve around. And as a chef, you need to have a great team. You need to be able to ensure the investor that the project is going to be sustainable. It doesn't have a high when it starts and then suddenly it falls down. It needs to have a constant gradual growth and is stable, and then high peaks and then stable. So those are the few things. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes.
But pretty much, is that.
It's easy to see that you are a great leader, chef. And I want to leave another question to you. How do you handle problems? What's the mindset to handle a problem in operation?
Yeah.
Because I think an investor will look for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question again, chef. I believe I see it more as an opportunity. When you mention that. So, for example, if there's a situation in your business, I always love to go down to the root cause of it. I train myself not to react to what has happened, but I like to react to why it has happened. So for me, the why becomes critical, because the why takes you to the root cause. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a problem in the business and the guests are complaining about the food, right? So as an old school, who was a chef? What did he make? I would like to know, what was the food? What was a specific comment about the customer? And then you come down to, if it was related with the technique, if it was related with the portion size, if it was related with the cooking method, if it was with the quality of the food, and then you drill down to say, okay, what happened here? Why did it happen? And once you approach and figure out that maybe the quality that you purchased wasn't good, or if it wasn't right, or if the chef hasn't cooked, who was a chef? Was it a trainee who cooked it? If it was a trainee, did the sous chef check it? Who let it go to the restaurant? It could be the fault of a sous chef, that he let it go when a young trainee was trying out some food, for example. It could be so many things. So why is more important than just what?
That's
And then after that, for me, it comes to how. How can you then correct it? Yeah. So why and how for me is a lot more important than just what happened. If it is to do with an attitude of a chef, I would love to understand if there's something bothering that person. Rather than just being upset as to why is he being temperamental, or, if he's careless, or if he's not turning up, if there's something that we can help to resolve that better. maybe somebody needs a break for a while. Maybe somebody needs to reassess himself or herself and come back stronger. It happens where we're dealing with the trickiest thing is we deal with humans and not machines all the time.
Yeah.
And human management, resource management, I believe for a chef is as important as trying to dish out a great food. Because
100%.
if it wasn't
100%.
your, fully channelized and synchronized team, then you're nothing.
They're nothing. That's
so
100%.
human management is very, very critical. And leading the team and setting an example is very important again, chef, that, how are we in the kitchen? Do we add a bit of fun in the kitchen? Then is it an opportunity where we can lighten the environment in the kitchen to make it more friendly and fun, but yet disciplined?
Disciplined, but has to be fun.
It has to be.
We are there for long hours.
Yeah.
It has to be fun.
And then as a person like me or anybody who's a head of a kitchen, he's got so many things going around, maybe personal, maybe professional, maybe future projects, maybe something that's bothering. You can easily reflect that in your character in the kitchen sometimes. And we have to be careful. We have to be role models. But I always see, as you say, problem as an opportunity for us to then improve and work towards.
That's very interesting. Look, we could be here for like hours.
Yeah, of course.
It is. It's always great to see you, to have a chat, and I'd like to thank you. Thanks for coming to Hospitality Talks. It's always. Always great to learn with you. And it was a pleasure, chef.
Yeah, no, likewise. I think Hospitality Made, I think it's a great platform, what you've started, chef. I wish you the best. And I think the talks like these certainly bring about a meaningful purpose to anybody listening, watching. And I believe we've brought about something at the table that can benefit somebody there down the line. But congratulations on your Hospitality Made.
Thank you. And for our audience, if they want to find you,
I think they can certainly reach me at Jolly Good Chef on Insta, or my website has a link. It's called chefjolly.com. On the connect page, you can always reach out to me. It takes you all to a professional email, which is called info@jollygoodhospitality.co.uk. So that's where I am, and I will try to always come back to you timely.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you, chef. Thank you for having me.